The Department of Homeland Security wants to find a path forward to enhance its cyber hygiene practices. DHS is tracking progress on the Pentagon's Cyber Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, for lessons learned. Nick Sinai is a senior advisor at Insight Partners. He's former Deputy Chief Technology Officer of the United States. Nick, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mimi. Great to see you.
So explain what a cyber certification program is and what it's meant to accomplish.
Yeah, so the whole idea here is contractors have a lot of sensitive but unclassified information, and adversaries have been stealing that. And so the Department of Defense has designed the CMMC process to essentially improve the security, improve the cyber hygiene of defense contractors, and hook it into the procurement system. And so that's the whole goal of the CMMC, and it's had some growing pains and is not operational yet. But that's what DoD is doing, and it sounds like from a recent posting we saw that Department of Homeland Security is looking into this and tracking quite closely and actually doing what they call a pathfinder, an experiment, to see if they might take a similar approach.
Well, you did mention the DoD's program and that Homeland Security is looking at it. What are those growing pains that you mentioned? How is that Pentagon program going?
Well, there's a strategic review initiated by the Deputy Secretary, and so you could call it a pause or a strategic review. But it's clear that the administration has heard some of the industry feedback that this is quite a substantial compliance regime, and the threat is real, and the goals are good, but this is a heavyweight system that is being set up with a set of third-party assessors and a whole ecosystem, and so this is something that if we're going to do is going to live for decades and decades, and so we have to be pretty sure that this is the best way to solve the problem. And I'm personally not convinced that such a broad and heavyweight compliance regime is the best way to solve the problem. And it seems like DoD has had some challenges in also setting up a third-party accreditation board, and so this whole ecosystem of kind of who helps the DoD kind of vet and accredit the defense contractors. As you can imagine, there's a little bit of a gold rush among services firms to do that. So,
but Nick, let me ask you before you get too far along in that, because I guess certification programs are a good thing. So how do we have this kind of certification to keep contractor networks secure in a way that works?
Yeah, so that's really it's a great question, Mimi, of how do we do things in a risk-focused way? So how do we kind of really focus the efforts, and how do we not have kind of a peanut butter approach where we spread it around too thin, but we actually understand what are the real risks, and how do we also account for a dynamic environment, right? The systems that they're building, those are dynamic. The threats are dynamic as well. And if you have a system that is a compliance system that is very static, you risk being unable to really achieve the goal of protecting that sensitive information.
You said that it takes a really long time for companies to get through those certification programs. How do you speed it up but not compromise on quality?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that the Department of Defense is looking at, and also something that DHS is looking at as well, is how do we use technology and automation rather than kind of checklists and paper-based processes? Because that's been the rub with traditional compliance regimes. And you could think about the authority to operate, the accreditation to go live with a software inside of the federal government. You could think about FedRAMP, the cloud certification process. They traditionally have been very checklist and kind of compliance, these long static processes, and we have to find a way to bring technology and automation to these certification regimes, and they have to adapt to kind of the modern threat. And what happens is we kind of lock in a approach and then we don't adapt to kind of what the adversary is doing.
You brought up FedRAMP, which is cloud certification. Briefly explain a little bit more about that, and if that's a better approach that could be used to certify contractor networks.
Yeah, so FedRAMP isn't designed for contractor networks. It's designed for software vendors, commercial off-the-shelf, as well as platform and infrastructure as a service vendors, the big cloud vendors as well. And the FedRAMP has been around about a decade, has a couple hundred companies that have gone through it, and has kind of become the gold standard for security in government. The challenge is there's tens of thousands of great software as a service companies, and very few of them are FedRAMP certified. And I see this with Insight's own portfolio. We have a dozen companies that have lived experience of going through FedRAMP, which often takes over a year and can take over $1 million of investment. And so it becomes a challenge for these companies to get through this. And part of it is making the security improvements, but a lot more of it is the documentation, frankly. And so actually a dozen of our companies worked together on a white paper to provide some both evolutionary and revolutionary reforms to the new administration, and to think about how to speed up FedRAMP. And it was good to see that in the cyber executive order that came out, there actually were a series of initiatives around modernizing FedRAMP. So I'm optimistic that we'll see some progress on that front.
Well, sounds good, Nick. Thanks so much for being on the program. Appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Mimi.